Could the Raiders be reuniting with an old friend? That plus more on Monday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for March 31st, 2025.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. We definitely appreciate you. If you're catching the show wherever you find your favorite podcast, that's awesome. You're checking us out by way of the YouTube page. You know we appreciate that as well. Our guy Ari does a fantastic job behind the scenes each and every day, making sure we look good and sound good. So we shout him out because we appreciate him. He's on Twitter at Ari Produces. I'm on Twitter as well at your boy Q254. And if you want to be a part of the show, as many of you do, 707-654-4693. It's a Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line. We will get back to your calls and texts. We didn't have any on Friday's show, but don't worry, we'll get back to them coming up on today's show in segment number 3 as we close out the show. And hopefully everyone had a fantastic weekend as well. But your calls and texts will close out the show in segment number 3. Segment number 2, we all talk about the draft. We talk about what we'd like to see the Raiders do as far as certain players that we'd like to see them select. Normally, that's usually round 1, round 2. I want to take an overall view of the draft and what I'd like to see the Raiders come away with at the very least. Now, I'm not going to go through and say you have to do this, that, and the other with all 9 other picks that they have currently, but there's a few positions that definitely, I believe, need to be addressed coming up in the draft, and we'll talk about that in segment number 2. Here in segment number 1, news and notes of the day, just kind of get you caught up on everything that you may have missed from Friday through today. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. And off top, I mentioned the Raiders could have a reunion with the old friend. Who's that old friend? Well, on Friday, my guy Ian Rappaport. I'm sorry, Jordan Schultz talked about the Raiders signing. But on Friday, Ian Rappaport tweeted out very early in the morning, comeback. Former Raiders wide receiver Hunter Renfrow, who did not play football last year but is still 29 years old, is visiting his old team, the Raiders, today, per me and Tom Pelissero. The South Carolina native also visited the Panthers on Wednesday and could do more. He plans to play in 2025. I thought that was great. I thought that was awesome. Hunter Renfrow's been a guy that a lot of Raider Nation has asked about. What's up with Hunter? Why don't the Raiders give him a call? They need a wide receiver. Why don't they bring him back? And from everything I understood when the Raiders released him, he could have played that year, right? The year that they released him, he didn't play at all last season. My understanding was that there was only a certain teams that he wanted to play for. I believe the Panthers were probably one of them because they're close to his home. I thought New Orleans was one of them as well because of his connection with Derek Carr. And you see how many former Raiders are there in New Orleans and was there in New Orleans when Derek Carr first arrived there. And the Raiders weren't one of them, right? Obviously, with the staff that was in place. So I'm interested, and that really intrigued me when I saw that tweet very early on Friday morning. I was thinking, okay, that would be great. We've talked about the wide receiver position, and the Raiders need to add a veteran wide receiver. I think he'd be perfect. I would love to see Hunter Renfrow return to the silver and black. That would be a great security blanket for Geno Smith, right? You already know what Brock Bowers brings to the table. You know what Jacoby Myers brings to the table, right? He's a guy that just always gets open, and we know what Hunter Renfrow could do, right? I think with this staff, Hunter Renfrow clearly would fit in very well with the Raiders, and like I said, we know what he's been able to do throughout the course of his career. I think he'd be a fantastic pick to pick up if they were to sign him. Now, it didn't happen. It went all weekend long, and it hasn't happened. So don't know if he wants to make more visits before he makes a decision. Don't know if the Raiders liked what they saw or heard from. Who knows, right? Maybe the contracts that are being rolled out, and we know so far what we've seen from John Spytek and Pete Carroll, it's not like they're rolling out some big deals, right? They're giving 1-year, 2-year deals max. So I don't know the ins and outs of that. I haven't heard anything else about it. But you want to talk about a signing that I would be all for? Hunter Renfrow. Sign that veteran, right? We've talked about Amari Cooper. We talked about Keenan Allen. Obviously, we talked about Stephon Diggs before he went to the Patriots, right? Tyler Lockett. Obviously, his familiarity with Pete Carroll from his time in Seattle. But Hunter Renfrow, sign me up. Again, he's not a number 1 wide receiver. I still think that the Raiders need a number 1 wide receiver. But if you add him, then you have the opportunity to go into the draft and get a player that you feel like is a big-time wide receiver. And even if he comes along a little bit slowly, that's okay. But because you have Jacoby, and Jacoby Myers has played the role of a number 1, and we know what Brock Bowers is. He's a number 1 weapon. He's not a wide receiver, but he's a number 1 weapon. So I think Hunter Renfrow would be the cleanest and safest veteran pickup that the Raiders could make. Now, just if they seal the deal, I don't know. But, man, I'm telling you, I would love love for them to make that move, and I would love to be talking about what he means to the team instead of what he could mean if they sign him. So hopefully they find a way to go ahead and get that done. Now, who they did sign on Friday, and this is from my guy Jordan Schultz from NFL on Fox. He tweeted out sources: the Raiders are signing veteran linebacker Devin White to a one-year deal. Raiders GM John Spytek drafted White in Tampa Bay and now reunites with him in Las Vegas. And I just thought that was so funny and so fitting. And I know many of Raider Nation did as well when they drafted Cleve Farrell number 4 overall. Tampa Bay drafted Devin White number 5. It's so funny because we've been talking about the Locked On NFL mock draft. When we did that mock draft back in 2019, I had the Raiders taking Devin White at number 4. Right. And I said, I know it's a little high for a linebacker, but he'll probably go one pick later if the Raiders don't do it. The Raiders didn't do it. He did go one pick later. And we all know how the Cleve Farrell experiment worked. Now, Devin White is not the Devin White that he was coming out of LSU when Tampa Bay got him in 2019. He struggled since he left Tampa Bay. I mean, he was in Philadelphia and then in Houston. But it's a one-year deal. Right. And the thing I like about it is he's an athletic dude. We know that. But he's going to have a chance to go compete. Right? Like all these signings, all these moves that the Raiders have made so far. I know they've let some pretty big talent go, from Robert Spillane to Divine Diablo, Trayvon Merrick, Nate Hobbs. Like, I get it. All the talent that's left, Marcus Epps. But all these guys they brought in, they all have an opportunity to compete. So that is something that excites me. And again, Devin White is not, the sideline to sideline stud linebacker that, I thought he was coming out of LSU. And I think he was early on in his career, but he provides more depth at the linebacking position, especially when the linebacking room had been hit pretty hard. It was basically gutted, right, when you let Robert Spillane and you let Divine Diablo go. So, slowly but surely they're starting to put this together. And, again, they're making a bunch of one-year signings, so there's going to be a lot of competition out there. So Devin White is with the silver and black, where he probably should have been back in 2019. Also, when it comes to guys that are coming up in the draft that will be selected probably pretty early in April, first couple rounds, the Raiders are going to have a private visit with Jalen Milroe. And it's funny, Jordan Schultz, again, my guy from NFL on Fox, tweeted out, I spoke with the NFL assistant GM about Alabama quarterback Jalen Milroe, and the GM said he's one of the most intriguing guys in the entire draft. There's a narrative that he's just a running quarterback, but that's way off. His deep ball could be a major weapon at the next level. I've watched him a lot. He's very capable in the pocket, cars up zone defense as well. There's a lot to work with, and I like the kid. Again, that was from an assistant GM about Jalen Milroe. And we've had a lot of conversations. I've had guys on the show, Ryan C. Fowler, who covers Alabama in Tuscaloosa like a glove, fantastic job, radio host, talking about Jalen Milroe. I know he's very talented. He's very athletic. He's got a super deep ball. And as long as you're going to be patient, if you're willing to be patient with him and not throw him into the fire immediately, there's an opportunity there for him, right? And the one thing, as much as I've been against signing or drafting Jalen Milroe, because I just don't think that he has the intermediate to short passing game, a lot of those are off. When I hear people talk about Pete Carroll and how well he does with young players and how much confidence he's able to put into the young players, that's some of the big issues with Jalen Milroe is lack of confidence at times, especially when things go bad. When he hits adversity, a lot of times, the confidence will start to go. So if Pete Carroll could inject that into him, you might have something there. And if you can get him, say, in the third round, and I don't know if he's going to be available just because we know the premium on quarterbacks and how extra early they get drafted, right? I mean, we know that Cam Ward's going to go in the first round. We know Shadour's going to go in the first round. We feel pretty confident Jackson Dart's going to go in the first round. There's a chance someone might trade up at the back end of round 1 and get Jalen Milroe, right? He might end up being a first-round quarterback just because we know how much quarterbacks are needed in the National Football League. At worst, he's probably a second-round pick. So as much as I say he'd probably be a really good pick in round 3, if the Raiders or anyone else wants him and they want him, they better jump on him early because he'll probably be gone. Like, they can't wait around. Just like, Jalen Hurts was gone in the second round. I could see a situation where Jalen Milroe is gone in the second round. But the Raiders do have a private visit set up with Jalen, so hopefully we'll find out a little bit about that. The one thing about this staff that I got to give them credit for, they keep everything pretty close to the vest. There's not a lot of leaks and conversations and, this is going on inside the building. And when you hear this stuff that's going on inside the building, most of the time it's just folks trying to create something to get clicks and likes and all that other stuff. You know how that goes. There's a handful of people that I trust where, reports come out from them, and I say, okay, I get it. But for the most part, this staff does a really good job with keeping everything really close to the vest. The final little nugget I have for you for segment number 1 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast, little news and notes of the day. Ashton Genty and Boise State, they had their pro day last week. All 32 teams were there in attendance. John Spytek, the Raiders GM, he was there. He took He took Ashton Genty out to dinner. After that, also the running back coach for the Raiders was there. But one of the local reporters there up at Boise State actually was talking to Ashton Genty following his pro day and talked about, where he would like to go. He's talked about going to the Cowboys. He's from that area, so of course he grew up, a Cowboy fan. That's his hometown. I mean, he started playing football in Italy, but for the most part, his hometown is Dallas, right? And so, of course, that would be a place that he'd like to go. But the reporter asked him about fits and also mentioned the Raiders. Check it out.
I think most importantly, you want to go to the right fit, right? The right organization, but also, have a great group of players around you, good vets to kind of show you the way, a great group of front office leaders, right? I think that's a big portion, but I mean, obviously, everybody wants to be in their hometown, but it's just about being at the right fit, just like Boise State was the right fit, even though I chose it. But, hopefully the team that chooses me knows that I'm the right fit.
What do you know about the Raiders? I mean, they are one organization that they sent their GM here today to check you out.
Yeah, I mean, great organization. I mean, they got a few pieces. I know they could use a running back, so they got that nice pick, number 6. So we'll see what happens. But it's been great meeting with them, reading with their running back coach. And so it's cool that, he came out all this way to meet with me.
Just a solid dude, man. Ashton Genty's definitely a solid dude. Obviously, he's in play there for the Raiders at number 6. Maybe he's in play for a team ahead of him, right? I mean, I've seen some folks say, why don't the Giants go and make up for getting rid of Saquon Barkley, or letting Saquon Barkley go and get Ashton Genty? And I don't know if they would go as high and draft him at number 3. But again, you never know what's going to happen until it actually happens in the draft. But I mean, that dude is rock solid. And I don't mean just playing on the field. I just mean dude, just solid dude. A1 guy, very well disciplined. He's the kind of dude that you wouldn't mind coming to the house and end up dating your daughter, because he's going to respect her, right? I mean, I guess that's the highest compliment I can give him. He's just an A1 dude. So I definitely can appreciate him and respect where he's coming from. Also, the owners' meetings are taking place in Florida starting today. So depending on what time you're listening to this, the AFC coaches will be talking with the media today. So hopefully Vinny Bonsignore, who's there, and I know a couple of other local reporters that are there as well, hopefully I'll be able to get some sound over from head coach Pete Carroll, maybe a little something from GM John Spytek as well. Again, the owners' meetings are in Florida. The only time I've gone is when they were in Phoenix, and I thought they were supposed to come back to Phoenix this year, but nope. They're in Florida, so I did not make the trip. But if we get anything from Pete Carroll, or if Vinny gets anything from Pete Carroll, I know he'll send it over to me, so I'll be able to provide that for the show as well. But that's what I got for you for segment number 1, today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Little news and notes of the day. Coming up in segment number 2, what do I believe that the Raiders need to focus in on and prioritize as far as what do they need to come away with in this upcoming draft? We'll talk about that in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. And we'll get to that as soon as I tell you about the title sponsor of the show, and that is FanDuel. March Madness is here. FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. And you better get in on it quick, because it's almost over. But right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. We are down to the final 4, right? So you've got Duke, you've got Houston, you've got Florida, and you've got Auburn. So that's really all you got to choose from. No Cinderellas there, all ones, as a matter of fact. So you could pick the ones, right? You could pick the underdogs in those games if you want. FanDuel is making it easy with spreads, totals, game props, all that good stuff. And the tournament games, they're just fun to watch, aren't they? So, again, getting down to the wire, but definitely do love them. The FanDuel app is simple to use. When you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around. So visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Want to get into where I think the focus needs to be for the Raiders in the upcoming draft. We could talk back and forth, and we obviously do, about this player, that player, the third. But we really need to focus in on what they need to come away with, how they need to continue to build this team in 2025. And, the funny thing is the way that they've gone about their business with the free agents that they signed, they've been very selective, right? They haven't gone out and spent a whole lot of money, even though they had the money to do so. Made obviously the big signing of Max Crosby, brought back Malcolm Kuntz. That was a big deal, made the trade for Geno Smith. But all the rest of the free agent deals have been very, as a matter of fact, they've been, very short and not a lot of money, and just purposeful. Like, it just seems like there's a plan. And I know that I've said this before when it comes to staff, so I don't want to get too high on them. I want to, see it all come together and see a really good product on the field, obviously, that's winning, because that's what Raider Nation deserves, is a winner. But it just feels like there's a plan this year. So I'm thinking, well, what's the plan going into the draft? We haven't seen much as far as offensive side of the ball, and the attention that they've done that in free agency. Obviously, there's been a lot of the one-year deals on the defensive side of things, but even those just feel like they're there to fill some holes, and maybe even some kind of placeholders, depending on what they're able to do in the draft. Maybe they'll look and get a guy in the draft and say, okay, yeah, we don't actually need this guy anymore. He probably won't make the 53-man roster, but he's there right now. So as far as I'm concerned, I've really got 5, and I know the Raiders currently have 9 draft picks, and obviously that could change with trades either up or back. That could change when the draft actually takes place. But I've got 5 position groups that I think that the Raiders need to focus in on, and this is not in any particular order at all. This is just, I just have them listed, and so I'm just going to go through them fairly quickly. And quarterback is definitely one. I'm not saying that they've got to go get a quarterback at 6. I'm not saying they got to go get a quarterback at 36, but I'm saying they've got to get a quarterback. At some stage of the game, before they leave this draft, they've got to go ahead and get a quarterback. We heard from Mike Tannenbaum last week, the former GM of the Jets and front office man of the Miami Dolphins, and more teams need to start getting in the habit of drafting quarterbacks consistently until they find their guy. I talked about the Raiders meeting with Jalen Milroe. If that's Jalen Milroe, great. If that's Jackson Dart, great. If that's Shador, great, right? Whoever the case may be, right? Dylan Gabriel, Will Howard, right? I mean, any of these guys, there's plenty of dudes that they can choose from at some stage of the game before the draft is all said and done, before Thursday, Friday, and Saturday are in the books. They need to come away with the quarterback. And I understand they can get a undrafted free agent, a priority signing, but it has to be someone that they believe in a little bit more than that, right? Kyle McCord, right? A guy from Syracuse, any of those dudes, right? There's dudes that can go play, right? They might not be the biggest names in the draft, but there's dudes that can go play the position. So they need to make sure that they come away. One of their 9 picks, in my opinion, needs to be a quarterback. Running back is obvious. Matter of fact, I would say they're going to come away with this draft with 2. One, I think they'll draft, and one will be an undrafted free agent. So that could be, the guys from Ohio State. That could be Genty early on. That could be, Marion Hampton. I mean, there's plenty of them. Cam Scatterbo, right? Devin Neal from Kansas. I mean, there's so many running backs, and that's why I think we've got so much debate back and forth what the Raiders should do. Should they go running back at 6? Should they go, offensive tackle? Should they go some other position group? Because, again, the running back group is deep, and I expect, and I do believe that with who you have in the running back room right now, you definitely need to address it a couple of times. Raheem Mostert brought in on a 1-year deal. Obviously, he's a little bit older. He was banged up quite a bit in 2024. They need a guy that they can hand the ball to and feel confident that he's going to be able to pick up the yardage that's needed. Maybe a Travion Henderson, right, from Ohio State. Judkins, obviously from Ohio State as well. Chip Kelly knows both those guys. I'd be surprised if one of those dudes isn't selected by the Raiders, right, just because Chip Kelly just won a national championship with them. So he's obviously very familiar. But I'll say one guy needs to be drafted, one guy needs to be signed as an undrafted free agent just to get some youth in the running back room. Chip Kelly knows that he's going to want to run the rock early and often with the Raiders, and why not have a couple different horses in your stable, right? That's how I look at it. So running back is definitely something that they need to prioritize. Wide receiver, they definitely need to prioritize. It's not deep when it comes to like star wide receivers like it was a year ago when you had 3 going in the top 10. It's not like that. I know there's a lot of pushback now on T-Mac after the video comes up or the audio comes up from him talking about he's not really a film study guy. So obviously a lot of people are going to say that that's a red flag. I think that he's a heck of a wide receiver, but I also think Matthew Golden is a heck of a wide receiver. Luther Burden out of Missouri is a heck of a wide receiver, and Burden is a guy that the Raiders are going to have private workouts with. There's a couple dudes, matter of fact, there at Texas, at the University of Texas, that I believe are really good wide receivers. Not just Matthew Golden, but also my guy from Alabama that was the Alabama transfer, and now I'm forgetting his name now. It's not 007. It's oh, well, anyway, you know what I'm talking about, right? Bond, Isaiah Bond. There you go. Yeah, James Bond. See, that's what I was thinking. So there you go. But yeah, Bond, he's a heck of a wide receiver as well. There's dudes, right? But they'll probably be in the sweet spot of like the 2nd and 3rd round is where the majority of the wide receivers will go. So if the Raiders don't address the wide receiver position in the 1st round, like with a T-Mac or a Matthew Golden, then look for him in the 2nd or 3rd round, one of those two to really address that wide receiver position. linebacker, even though they signed Devin White, even though they got E-Rob, right? I mean, we know that they've got, other dudes in that room as well that aren't as experienced. They need to make sure that they come out of this draft with a couple linebackers. And this draft is better on the linebackers than most. I think it's really good on the linebackers, running backs, and defensive tackles is a really good draft, right? Those three positions are ones, if you need those guys, they're there. So at some point, some stage of the game, the Raiders need to make sure that they get their linebacker. It's funny, I wanted them to get Devin White back in 2019. They didn't go that direction, and it just seems like they're never able to get that linebacker, that real deal guy. Even Divine Diablo, remember, they turned him into a linebacker. He was a safety at Virginia Tech, and then he turned into a linebacker with the Raiders, and he held his own. He obviously signed that free agent deal with the Falcons, but he was never just that real solid linebacker. Really the best linebacker play that the Raiders got was from Robert Spillane, and before that it was Denzel Perryman, and obviously he had some deficiencies in his game as well. So linebacker needs to be something that the Raiders, start to address. And of course, with Pete Carroll, I believe that they will. We know he's a defensive-minded guy. So that's what kind of gets me excited, is that the defense is already the strength of the team, even though it needs some upgrades. And I believe that with Pete Carroll, they're definitely going to make sure that they continue to upgrade it and draft early, and not disrespect the defense and just get these guys late. They're going to find a time to get them early and try to get the best of the best. And there's some real deal dudes that can go from that linebacker position. And then, of course, offensive line. I would love to know the truth, and I don't know. I would love to really, truly know how the Raiders inside the building feel about the offensive line and the players that are there. Like, I would love to know. Do they feel like we felt about the offensive line early in the season last year, or do they feel like we felt about the offensive line late in the season, right? The final 4 games, I think everyone thought, hey, man, the offensive line is pretty good, right? But that wasn't what it was early on. There was a lot of injuries. Colton Miller was injured at first. JPJ, a rookie. DJ Glaze, a rookie, trying to get acclimated, right? Have they seen enough growth? Did they see enough growth over the last month of the season to feel like, okay, these dudes are going to take that next step? We've got Parham, right? We brought Meredith back. We signed Kappa for depth, right? There's a couple other guys that are coming back that we have that we feel good about. Or do they look at it and say, yeah, it still needs work? Right, so I do believe at some point in the draft they're going to draft, a tackle or maybe even a couple guards. Maybe it's the interior. Maybe the tackle position is fine. Maybe it's just the guards that need to be upgraded. So at some point, I do think offensive line needs to be helped. So I know that's pretty much, feels like a lot of positions, right? Well, Q, you didn't leave us anything. Quarterback, running back, wide receiver, linebacker, O-line help, right? So it's funny, as I said that and I just rattled it all off, I realized I never said cornerback. Obviously that can use some help too. Safety position I think is pretty good, right? I mean, I guess bottom line, as we go through this exercise together in real time, you just realize that the Raiders need as many playmakers as possible, right? So even if I'm narrowing it down and not trying to list off like five different position groups, they need guys that can make plays and guys that make impacts on basically all areas, right? Quarterback, running back, wide receiver. I think, again, if they go and sign Hunter Renfrow, I would love to see that. But 2, I think that allows a rookie wide receiver to come along a little bit slower. Linebacker, I like that they've already addressed it with a couple. That also allows a rookie linebacker to come along slow. Like, that's what makes me happy about this situation, right? The quarterback, Geno Smith, they already got him. So even if they draft a rookie quarterback, they don't have to throw him on the field immediately and let him go along slow. Like, that's the big thing. Running back's going to be the big question because we know that they really do need that running back. And again, that could be addressed as early as number 6. It might be just that easy. Like, hey, done, right? It's a wrap. Number 6 overall, boom, running back. And then maybe get another guy later on as far as an undrafted guy. But they just need as many playmakers as possible. And if you look at Tampa Bay and what GM John Spytek, as the assistant GM there in Tampa Bay, helped do with Jason Light, then you know that they're able to find talent. They're able to get it on the field pretty early and get a lot of production from them. So if you are not forced to have these guys go onto the field early, that's even better, right? But they did it in Tampa Bay. They went from having the oldest roster to having a fairly young roster and so many contributors from the rookie class on that field. So that's what I'm looking at as far as just priorities. Again, we're talking about, every player that we like, and we're going to do that throughout the course of the next 30-something days or whatever the case may be. The draft's on the 24th. We're already on the 31st. So, I mean, it's go time, right? So it's less than 30 days, and we'll be, talking about who the Raiders selected as opposed to who we believe that they will select. But what's on your mind? Your calls and texts are coming up next, 707-654-4693. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and texts straight off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Here's a quick call from Stockton, California. I couldn't quite hear the name, and I apologize for that, but he's calling to give his thoughts on the Raiders, what they need to do at pick number 6, and just the team in general. It's a call from Stockton. Here it is. Check it out.
Q, it's your boy, Raider Chad Haynes, calling out of Stockton, California, man. I'm going to keep it short and sweet, Q. I noticed with you don't have a problem admitting when you're wrong, and you will say that when you're wrong, hey, man, I was wrong. However, the problem in that is stop being okay with mediocrity, bro. Like, I noticed you're totally okay with mediocrity. We're in a new time now. It's new Raiders. We're going with the best of the best, the cream of the crop. Ashton Jinky is the guy. Make Madden fun again for Raiders fans, Q. Come on, man. You got to get on board, big dog. This is, hey, I see it going up. We about to go up. We were dead last in running. We weren't dead last on the defensive line. Let's adjust the run game. Take some pressure off Geno. And just win, baby. All right, Q. I'm out.
Thank you for the call. Appreciate you as always. Sorry I didn't hear your name. It just got a little muffled at the beginning. But, yeah. Couple things here. One, I'm definitely not okay with being mediocre. I think anyone who's listened to me for a while or knows me personally knows that I'm not okay with being mediocre. I have no problem admitting when I'm wrong. I think that's more people should accept that and more people should actually exercise that, right? Just because it's not a bad thing, you know, being able to admit that you're wrong. So, but yeah, I'm definitely not okay with being mediocre. When it comes to the Raiders, I have no control over what they do. So I am not okay with being mediocre. I want nothing more than this team to win. I want nothing more than to be able to tell, you know, Lil Q or show Lil Q, say, see, this is the team that I've been telling you since you were born how great they are, right? I would love to be able to brag and show him who they are. But as I'm older now, 48, I realize, and I've gone through some things in life, as many of us have, I realize that what the Raiders do, I can't live and die by. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to get mad. I'm not going to yell and scream. I'm not going to curse them out like some people do. And there's shows that do that. And that's cool. I respect it. That's their thing, right? I like to be chill. I like to kind of play it down the middle, right? It has nothing to do with being mediocre or being okay with being mediocre. Again, I think the body of work that I do every day proves that that's not true. You know, so, and I think if you're being honest with yourself, you understand that too. Like, again, like I'm okay with being wrong. I think you could be okay with being wrong here too. There's nothing about me that screams mediocre at all. Like I can say that with my head up high, that there's definitely nothing mediocre about me. What it is with the Raiders, they're out of my control. They're absolutely 100% out of my control. I would love for them to make every right decision and do what they do. I also, the other thing about it, and it's a slippery slope, and I can understand where you're coming from, especially when I say that I think the team's going to do similar to what, you know, like Sean Payton did with the Broncos his first year, where he, you know, won 8 and 9, and he didn't make it to the playoffs. And, you know, I'm saying that's what I'm thinking this first year with the Raiders is going to be. I get that because it's like, well, you're settling for not the playoffs. Right. But I also don't want to set you up and act like, oh, man, this team's going to make the playoffs. Q believes that they're going to make the playoffs. And then all of a sudden they pee on themselves. Right. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, Q was just selling me some goods. I don't want to be that guy either. Right. I would love to, say I think they're going to, you know, have a Sean Payton-like season the first year. And then they overachieve. And I'll be like, man, that was fantastic. They did like the Chargers. They went to the playoffs. That's great. You know, let's keep the party rolling. But, you know, I've learned, and I try to learn from previous mistakes, and I've learned from, you know, having higher expectations and then it not coming out that way. Like, I really thought that defense last year was going to be fantastic, right, under Antonio Pierce. Like in Costa Mesa, when I thought this team was going to be a top 5 defense, and you can go back and look, there's a podcast, right? Expect the Raiders to have a top 5 defense 2024, something like that. I don't know the exact title. I believed that from what I saw, and they were nothing close to that. And so I don't want to get ahead of myself, right? I'd rather go along at the same time, like we all go at the same speed, as opposed to me getting way out in front and setting you up for failure. You know, like I believe you tune into the show every day or whenever you do because you have a certain expectation and you expect a certain standard from me. Well, to live up to that and not be mediocre, I don't want to get reckless, if that makes any sense. Ashton Jeanty is a fantastic player. If the Raiders get him at number 6, I will have no problem with that. If they go and get a big-time offensive tackle and he ends up being a stud for 10 years, guess what? I'll have no problem with that either. If they get Mason Graham, who could be a stud defensive tackle next to Christian Wilkins and make a strength even stronger, I'll have no problem with that either. None of that has to do with mediocre. That's all about making the team better, right? So whatever direction they go, right, you can have some short-term success or immediate success, I should say, with the Ashton Genty, and then you can also have a long-term success. Like even if they went and got a quarterback, he might not pay off day one, but he might pay off in the long run where you're super happy about him later on, right? Similar to, say, you know, like Alex Smith when he was in Kansas City and they traded up to go get Patrick Mahomes. Like that didn't pay off because he really didn't play that much his rookie year. He basically redshirted it until the end of the year. But then all of a sudden it paid off afterwards. And no, I'm not saying any of these quarterbacks in the draft is Patrick Mahomes, but I'm just saying it's a similar approach. So I know that was a long answer. I hope that was, you understood it. Again, I don't know how long you've been listening to the show or if you know anything about me or my story. Nothing about me is mediocre, and I don't settle for mediocrity. That's none of my shows, none of the platforms that I work at in my life. I don't live like that. So that's the misconception that you have about me. So that's where you're wrong. I can say that. I can say that with a smile on my face. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can see the smile. But thank you for the call. I do appreciate you. Sorry I didn't get your name. Up next, got a text from Big Drew. Yo, what up, Q? Big Drew here. Really quick, want to ask, why are so many upset about the Devin White signing? We needed linebacker help. We got linebacker help. Personally, this one is my favorite signings of the offseason. Dude was a straight baller when he was with the Bucs, and now he's back with Brady and Spytek. Obviously, that doesn't mean he's going to be the same all-pro player once again, but with Carroll and Graham, I definitely think he has a higher floor than most think. Also, this feels so much like the Crabtree signing. Both Crabtree and Devin White had something to say when we didn't draft him, and then somehow still ended up on the team. Anyone who isn't a fan, I just say go look at his number when playing with the Bucs, and that should make you feel a little bit better about him. Scratching my head on why people don't like it. And oh, by the way, he's only 27. Anyway, appreciate all you do, big dog. Big Drew out Raiders. That's text from Big Drew. Thanks for the text. Appreciate you. I like the Devin White signing. My expectations aren't super high, like he's going to be some all-pro guy like he was in Tampa Bay. He's gone, obviously, down a little bit when he went to Philadelphia and later with Houston as well. Wasn't so hot. But, you know, if anyone could make him play at a pretty high level, I would think that Pete Carroll would. So, again, at the very end of the day, like you said, the Raiders needed linebacker help. They got linebacker help. At least a guy that could fill that void for right now. And maybe they go into the draft and get a couple studs and like, man, we don't need Devin White, right? We got a couple real deal studs. But no, you're right. I mean, again, as I told the story in segment number 1, he was the guy I had selected in the Locked On NFL mock draft at number 4 overall, and the Raiders took Cleve Farrell, and then Devin White went number 5 to Tampa Bay, and it is kind of similar to the whole Crabtree thing as well. Now, if the Raiders can get production like they got out of Crabtree, right, when he signed with the team, then, man, they're cooking with grease. I wouldn't expect that. I wouldn't want to set myself up for failure like that. But if they can get anything close to that, because Crabtree ended up being that guy, oh, yeah, I'd be all for that. But thank you for that text, man. I do appreciate you. Up next, got and man, he's only 27. That is pretty wild. I only think he's 27, right? Up next, got a call from Trucker Ken in Central Florida. He's calling to talk about the one-year deals the Raiders are handing out in free agency. A quick call here from Trucker Ken.
What's up, Q? Hey, man, this is Trucker Ken out of Central Florida. Hey, I just had a couple comments on these one-year deals that Coach Pete, signing these guys to. I love it. I mean, he really does mean show up and compete. Right? You show up, you compete, you ball out, you get a new deal. If you don't, bye, Felicia. We're gonna move on, bring somebody else in, see if they'll compete. It is absolutely a culture changer, and you can see it. I hope it translates to the field, but what he's doing right now is changing the organization from the inside out, and I love it. You can see it. Anyway, love what you're doing, Q. Go Raiders.
Ken Dog, thanks for the call. And yeah, I mean, when Pete Carroll says show up and compete, he truly means show up and compete. You hit it right on the head. I asked Ryan Hogue, former Raiders wide receiver. He was drafted Mr. Irrelevant back in 2003, really good friend of mine, and he's a guest on my show all the time. He was on Friday, and I asked him, I said, what have you think about the free agent moves, the way that the Raiders have conducted their business? He said, I love it, Q. I love it. And he said basically loved it for every reason that you just mentioned. Everyone knows that nothing is given. Everything has to be earned. These guys have a chance to compete, and even guys that have been overlooked and basically just kind of put to the side and say, well, you're a special teams dude at best. They know that they have an opportunity. If they can go out there and hang with these guys and prove themselves, they can do some really big things. So he said as a former player, especially a guy like him who was drafted, Mr. Irrelevant, that's the last pick in the draft, That's all any guy ever wants, is a chance to get into camp and prove themselves. And as long as they believe in themselves, they believe that they can be that guy, they'll go out there and compete. Some guys make it, some guys don't, but at least they're given a chance. So you're spot on. And like I said, anytime I could talk to a former NFL wide receiver and ask him thoughts like that, and he can give me basically the same thoughts, I feel like you're pretty good. You're on to something there. So thanks so much for the call. I definitely appreciate you. Up next, got a text from Professor Rader from Boston. He said, Q, I sent you a text on February 27th referring to Mike Tannenbaum. I'm not sure you can get it clipped, but he was on Get Up and Mike T threw a stray at the Raiders organization. I think it's ironic that you have referred to what he has said to say about upcoming draft, but I can't get that clip out of my head, and I don't have any respect for him. In the same way, we don't take Michael Lombardi seriously. I think Mike T fits that list. Regarding the upcoming draft, it took me a while, but I think Genty over Membu. We saw what Jacobs did with an all right offensive line, led the league in rushing. If that's Genty's floor, I'll take it. My first pick is Graham, as he would fit the Eagles model, beating up on Mahomes without having to blitz, but I don't think he'll drop to 6. Genty is a good consolation prize. Just win, baby. Professor Rader from Boston. Thanks for the text. I do appreciate you. And yeah, I mean, look, sometimes guys are going to make a comment, and like you said, Mike T might have thrown a stray at the Raiders. I didn't catch that episode. I'm kind of in and out sometimes on those shows, so I didn't catch that one. But I mean, everyone's not for everyone, right? Some people like Mike T, some people don't like Mike T. Some people like Mel Kiper, some people don't like Mel Kiper. That's cool, right? I mean, I could appreciate what Mike T has to say because he's coming from a former GM's point of view. So anytime I can hear someone talk that's smarter than me and has been there, done that, that's why I like to hear what they have to say. That's why I like to be in on those conference calls. And that's why I like to bring them to the show, because again, they've been somewhere I've never been. I've never been in the hot seat and having to make a decision and all of a sudden be on the clock or try to generate a trade or whatever the case may be, talent evaluating like that. I'm a podcaster and a radio guy, right? So, I mean, that's it. So that's all. But like I said, I get it. I mean, like I said, everyone's not for everyone. Hell, I'm not for everyone, right? So it's all good. And you make a good point about, Genty over Membu and the reasons why. Again, we heard Bucky Brooks. Bucky Brooks isn't for everybody, but we heard Bucky Brooks say he felt like Genty's floor was Josh Jacobs. So if that's his floor, that could be fantastic, right? And so that can be a huge boost, especially helping Geno Smith get comfortable with the Raiders and get Pete Carroll kind of back to what he does, right? And obviously, if you're able to run the ball, time of possession, I mean, we know how it goes. Brock Bowers is fantastic. Trey Tucker, they can start sucking up the defense and maybe hit him over the top. Like, there's a lot to like. So I don't think that you're wrong. I just like that I, spent all week really going back and forth trying to decide what the best decision is for me to make the pick at number 6. And obviously with your guys' help as well, from calls and texts and tweets and whatever the case may be, I like it to be not a me thing, but a we thing. So that's just how I get down. Thank you so much for that text, though. Really good stuff. We'll close out with a call from Vince in Fresno, the 559 representative. He's calling to talk about what he thinks the Raiders need to do at 6 if a quarterback is not available. Here he is. Here's Vince.
Good morning, Q. It's Vince out of Fresno. Appreciate your podcast. Listen every morning when I'm working. But with the draft coming up and us holding the the 6th overall pick, if we can't get a quarterback, we can't pick up Shador. And I know damn well Cam Ward's going to be gone by the time we get to our draft pick. So all I'm saying is, you take the best player. I believe the best player after them, it has to be Genty. We got to get a running back. We have enough firepower with the wide receivers, good enough. And Geno Smith back there, O-line's a little better. Give them time, it opens everything up. And you see what happens when everything opens up. The offense just looks good. Keep the defense off. That's another main thing. We got to keep the defense off the field. But appreciate your show. I think we should drop that running back at number 6.
Vince, thanks for the call. Appreciate you. And I mean, that very well could be, how it's going to go. As a matter of fact, that's how it feels, right? It feels like it's almost the inevitable, right? Now, someone ahead of the Raiders could change that. Someone could go and draft Genty before the number 6 overall pick. I don't know if they will, but I know there's conversations out there about it. But, as we saw the draft last year with Michael Penix going number 8 to Falcons, I don't think too many people saw that one coming. And then all of a sudden it happened. And so all of a sudden that alters your draft and maybe a guy that you didn't expect to be there. Like, I never thought Brock Bowers would be there at number 13. I never did any due diligence on him because I was like, oh, he's that dude's going to be long gone. And there he was. He was available. So maybe that happens with like a Travis Hunter or an Abdul Carter or whatever. I've done a couple of those PFF simulator drafts. And one time Abdul Carter was there at 6. Shador Sanders was there at 6. Travis Hunter was available there at 6. T-Mac, Tetaroa, McMillan. He was there available at 6. Like, you just never know. You never know. Like, one of those mock drafts, I got Jalen Milroe like late in the 3rd round, and it's like, wait, how is this even possible? And so, it's fun to do. It's a fun exercise to do. Maybe one day we'll actually bring some of our mock drafts to the table. Matter of fact, maybe I'll do it today. I'll do it today, and then coming up on Tuesday's show, I'll go through. I'll just do it one time and see what happens. I'll do 7 rounds and see what happens. I'm not going to make any trades. Well, maybe I will. Who knows? Anyway, it'll be an exercise that I do. How about that, right? Just because it's so fascinating to see how many different scenarios really play out. And if you do that thing like 5 or 6 different times, you're probably going to get 5 or 6 different results. So I'll do that just for fun, just for S's and giggles. We'll do that, and I'll bring it to tomorrow's show as well. Hopefully we'll hear something about Hunter Renfrow sooner rather than later. Again, we'd love to see the Raiders sign him probably to a 1-2 year deal, whatever the case may be, but we'd love to see Third and Renfrow back with the silver and black. I think he'd really be a great security blanket for one Geno Smith. So we'll see if there's any other moves that are happening. We'll find out if there's any news coming out of the owners' meetings as well. That is a big deal for the silver and black. And, of course, we'll talk about it coming up on tomorrow's show. So until then, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.